Hello, everyone. Today, we will continue to share about the lives of Tieu Huyen and Maya, where the trails seem to lead to oblivion. In that seemingly peaceful place, a story full of loss, pain, and silent determination is taking place, a journey to find love with all your heart. Tieu Huyen, a single mother with a heart full of scars, gradually rebuilds her life after nameless events. She saves Nga, an 18-year-old girl who has just escaped the cruel hands of human traffickers, of life and of faith that has never died. As the first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the forest canopy, the soft gurgle of the nearby stream mingled with the cheerful chirping of birds, composing a gentle symphony of the wilderness. In the midst of the rising mist, a small figure moved gracefully Tieu Huyen. Her hands worked quickly, rinsing clothes in the cool water, her movements calm and practiced. Just a few feet away, her young daughter Maya watched curiously, her wide eyes fixed on her mother, who seemed lost in thought, staring off into the distance. Last night's event still lingered in Tieu Huyen's mind. The terrifying moment she risked her life to save a young woman from human traffickers. Why was she trembling so badly? So scared, Tieu Huyen whispered to herself, her eyes reflecting a deep well of empathy. Back at their modest wooden cabin, the stranger Nga lay still, her face pale and exhausted. Maya sat quietly beside her, her tiny fingers gently tugging at the edge of the blanket. "Mama, why is this lady sleeping in our house?" Maya asked, her voice innocent and full of wonder. Tieu Huyen gave a soft smile and brushed her daughter's hair back. "She's very tired, sweetheart. Let's not wake her, okay? Be gentle." From the corner of the room, a small pot simmered over a wood stove. The scent of warm rice porridge floated through the air, mixing with the crisp freshness of the mountain morning. The home, though simple, radiated a kind of warmth that felt almost sacred. As Tieu Huyen ladled the porridge into a bowl, her eyes shifted between Maya and the sleeping Nga, watching with quiet protectiveness, like a mother offering her embrace to the world. In the stillness of the forest, that tiny cabin had become something more, a refuge. And maybe, just maybe, it was Tieu Huyen's gentle heart that would be the first step in healing the wounds hidden deep within Nga's soul. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting a blanket of golden light over the endless cornfields. A gentle breeze drifted through the rows of tall green stalks, making them sway softly like they were whispering stories to each other in the morning stillness. Walking slowly toward the edge of the field was a thin, weary-looking man in a faded shirt worn thin at the shoulders. His name was Jay, a man who had spent every waking moment searching for Tieu Huyen and her daughter Maya, the family he couldn't stop thinking about for even a second. With quiet sincerity, he approached the farmer and spoke up. "Sir, would you let me work here? I'll do anything you need. I just need a job." The older man, likely the owner of the land, looked him over with a thoughtful gaze. After a long pause, he gave a small nod, his eyes showing a trace of compassion. "All right, the field's big. We could use the help." The sun glinted off the golden ears of corn that stretched before G like an open invitation. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work without hesitation. Beads of sweat soon formed on his forehead, but he stayed focused, harvesting each ear of corn with quiet care, as if he were gathering pieces of his own hope, one by one. A fellow worker nearby glanced over and asked, "Tough job. You sure you can handle it?" Joe offered a faint smile. "As long as I've got my hands, I can still work." The farmer chimed in again, his voice calm and curious. "You from around here?" G paused, eyes drifting toward the horizon. "No, sir. I came from far away. I'm looking for my family. But I haven't heard anything yet." A silence fell over the field. No one said a word, but something shifted. There was empathy in the air, now quiet, but unmistakable, shared in glances rather than words. As the sun beat down harder, sweat ran into the corners of Ju's eyes, stinging them. Still, he kept going. His hands worked tirelessly, tying sack after sack of corn, his gaze unwavering, holding tight to a hope that hadn't dimmed. And in the wind that swept across the field, there was something profoundly moving, the quiet strength of a man searching for love with everything he had left to give. In the early morning quiet of a small mountain cabin, birds chirped cheerfully outside the window. Inside the warm kitchen, another sound joined nature's song, the soft, innocent voice of little Maya. Sitting cross-legged in the corner of the room with an old notebook open in her lap, she sang with all her heart, "I love you, Mom. You mean everything to me." Tieu Huyen turned to look at her daughter, a gentle smile spreading across her face. Her eyes, warm like the morning sun, shimmered with quiet emotion. In her heart, she made a silent promise, "I'll do whatever it takes to make sure Maya is happy." The pot of porridge on the stove bubbled gently, sending the comforting scent of rice throughout the tiny wooden home. Maya jumped up and ran over, her eyes lighting up. "Mommy, I want some porridge." Tieu Huyen was just about to stand when she noticed movement on the bed. The girl named Nga, whom she had rescued the night before, was finally stirring. Tieu Huyen hurried over, gently helping her sit up, speaking in a soft and soothing voice. "Are you feeling okay? You're safe here. This is my home. No one is going to hurt you now." Nga's eyes fluttered open, still clouded with fear and confusion. Everything around her felt unfamiliar, and she trembled as she looked around. But then a warm hand rested on her shoulder, Tieu Huyen's calm presence, offering the first sense of safety she'd felt in days. Maya stepped closer, shyly reaching out to hold the stranger's hand. "Don't be scared," she said in her sweet, innocent voice. The words were simple, but they brought tears to Nga's eyes. As the tension slowly melted, Nji began to share pieces of her story. Sitting close, Tieu Huyen asked gently, her eyes full of empathy, "Why were those men chasing you? What happened?" Nga broke down, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. After a long pause, her voice trembled through the tears. They were with my husband. He's trying to sell me to Cambodia." The words hit Tieu Huyen like a knife to the heart. She didn't press for more. Instead, she quietly ladled a full bowl of hot porridge, brought it to Nga, and said softly but firmly, "We're women, and that means we have to be strong. If we don't fight for ourselves, no one else will." The cabin, though small and humble, suddenly felt like a sanctuary. Maya sat between the two women, carefully spooning porridge into Nga's hands. Nga, just 18, her frame thin and her eyes swollen from crying, began slowly to feel the stirrings of hope again. Wrapped in the quiet strength of a stranger's kindness and the innocent love of a child, she realized something she thought she had lost: faith in people. Inside the quiet wooden cabin, nestled deep in the mountains, the silence was broken by a raw, aching sound. Nga's sobs pouring out like a dam finally breaking. The young girl, only 18, trembled like a leaf caught in a storm. Overwhelmed, she threw her arms around Tieu Huyen, clinging to her with everything she had. Her tears flowed freely, soaking into the shoulder of this kind stranger who felt more like family than anyone ever had. "Thank you. Thank you for saving me," she cried between gasps. "I've been through so much. I didn't think anyone would care." Her voice cracked under the weight of every hurt she'd carried, and the room seemed to hold its breath with her. Tieu Huyen stood still, arms gently wrapping around Nga. She said nothing at first, just rubbed the girl's back in slow, soothing circles, like a mother comforting a child. But her own eyes welled up, and before long, silent tears slid down her cheeks. These weren't tears of weakness. They were tears of empathy, of recognition. Somewhere in Nga's pain, she had seen her own. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, rough around the edges, but filled with strength. "I know what you're feeling. I've been there. There was a time I thought I wouldn't make it either, but I had to survive. For Maya. She's everything to me. I was exhausted, broken. But if I gave up, who would she have left?" Nyi looked up, eyes swollen with emotion, staring at this woman who had saved her. Gratitude and admiration flickered in her gaze. "Aren't you scared?" she asked quietly. "Raising your daughter alone, living all the way out here, and still helping someone like me." Tieu Huyen gave a small, wistful smile. Her eyes wandered to the distant trees outside the window. "Of course I'm scared, every day. But the more scared I am, the stronger I know I have to be. Because if we don't protect each other, who will?" Her words settled over the room like a warm fire on a cold night. And in that moment, something shifted in Nga. She gripped Tieu Huyen's hand tighter, not out of desperation, but out of something deeper. It was the first time in a long while she had felt grounded, like she had found a root she could hold on to, a reason to believe again. In the corner of the room, little Maya sat quietly holding her worn stuffed bear, her wide eyes watching the two women. Though she said nothing, she seemed to sense the sacredness of the moment, an unspoken bond formed in Tier's love and the beginning of healing. A mother's strength, a stranger's compassion, and a fragile, flickering hope born again in the soft light of morning. As he walked down the narrow mountain path, there fell a glimmer of hope in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Earlier that day, he had gone into town asking around and trying to gather some more information about Tieu Huyen and the little girl Maya. Not much, but something. Every little clue kept him going. He had also bought some food while he was out, enough to cook a decent meal when he returned. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was meant as a thank you dinner for Adam, who had kindly taken him in when he had nowhere else to go. When he entered the clearing in front of the house, he saw Adam sitting by the fire with another friend. They were huddled together, asking about his injuries. Adam was still recovering, his movements limited, but he looked better than he had in days. Seeing someone approaching, Adam looked up and greeted him with a half smile. "You're back. Any news from the market? Have you heard anything about Tieu Huyen and his mother?" Dee groaned, putting down his backpack and letting out a tired but hopeful sigh. "Yeah, I heard something. Not much, but enough to keep me going. I know I'll find them. I miss Tieu Huyen and Maya so much. Every day without them feels like a lifetime. Adam didn't answer right away. He just nodded slightly and continued stirring the pot, letting the silence settle gently between them. Inside the bamboo house, the smell of firewood and herbs wafted through the air, mingling with the quiet promise of a shared meal. For the first time in a while, the evening didn't feel heavy. There were no sudden breakthroughs, no dramatic moments, but there was warmth conversation and the feeling that perhaps the path ahead was finally beginning to open up. And for Dee, that was enough for now. Because with every step, every question asked, and every meal shared, he was getting closer to the two people he craved most. The dinner that Dee prepared was simple but sincere. The two of them sat together, telling stories, laughing, enjoying a warm meal as if they had known each other for years. There was something comforting in this quiet friendship. Two strangers, both carrying their own burdens, finding a brief peace in each other's company. When they finished eating, Dee looked at Adam and said sincerely, "Your leg hasn't healed yet, so I'm going to go find a job." Adam looked at him surprised. Dee continued his tone, even but purposeful. "I want to help you. And if I go out there to work, maybe I'll hear something about Tieu Huyen and Maya." The words hung in the air for a moment, heavy with hope and unspoken gratitude. Adam didn't object. He just nodded slightly, knowing that Dee was determined. And in that quiet exchange, a new sense of determination arose. This is no longer just about survival. It's about rebuilding, finding, and keeping the people who matter most, no matter how distant they may seem. Tieu Huyen could feel the weight of loneliness lingering in Nga's heart. As much as she wanted to keep the girl safe, she knew Nga had to return to her new life and face whatever came next. Just before she left, Tieu Huyen gently took her hand and said, "If anything ever happens, you can always come back here. My door is open." Nga lowered her head, her voice soft and full of emotion. "Thank you." Truly, Tieu Huyen stood there in silence, watching the girl walk away down the dirt path, her figure growing smaller with each step. Before she disappeared from view, Tieu Huyen called out once more, reminding her to stay safe and be careful. Days passed. Life returned to its quiet rhythm. Tieu Huyen kept herself busy working on the little wooden house she and Maya called home. That afternoon, she finished building a small bed for Maya, a simple thing, but one made with care and love. The home, once worn and fragile, was slowly becoming a real place of comfort. Room by room, piece by piece, it was taking shape, just like the life Tieu Huyen was rebuilding from the ground up. She poured love into everything she touched, giving warmth and kindness to those around her, without hesitation. But behind her gentle smile, she carried her own quiet pain. She had known struggle more than most. Life had been hard, often unfair, but she never let it harden her heart. Even as she gave love to others, she bore the weight of sacrifice. She didn't complain. She didn't ask for anything in return. She just kept going strong, steady, and full of hope that the future might offer something better, especially for Maya. And so, in that quiet mountain home, Tieu Huyen continued to build to love and to endure. Not because life was easy, but because she believed it was still worth fighting for.